CBSE, Grade 6, Chapter 10, Supplementary Reader, A Strange Wrestling Match. Solution. We'll see the summary and question answers. Summary. A strange wrestling match. Summary. Vijay Singh was a famous wrestler, but boasting was Vijay Singh's weakness. One day, he was sitting in the market drinking milk. There were several young men surrounding him. Suddenly, he boasted, "Why are people afraid of ghosts? I am not. I wish I met a stout ghost." Thus, he declared his wish to meet a stout ghost. A person told him that ghosts roamed freely in the haunted desert. They looted and killed the travelers. Vijay Singh felt scared. He felt that his boasting had pushed him into an awkward situation. Outwardly, he showed his disbelief in such fairy tales. Vijay Singh was told that the haunted desert was beyond an ugly black rock on the road to Jaisalmer. Vijay Singh made up his mind to find a ghost in the haunted desert. The entire village made him a bid farewell. Bid him farewell. Bid. It's not bid. Bid. An old woman handed him a small packet. Vijay Singh knew that the woman was very wise and not eccentric. Her gift later on helped him much to scare the ghost. Vijay Singh started walking. He reached the desert at sunset. It was a moonlight night. The ugly black rock was still a few miles ahead. The night had advanced. Vijay Singh opened the old man's bucket. It contained a lump of salt and an egg. Vijay Singh stepped into the haunted desert. He heard a voice calling him by his name. The voice named itself as his friend Natwa. It told him that he would get lost in the desert. Vijay Singh asked Natwa to come near him and show him the way. In fact, Vijay Singh wanted to size up his enemy. That means he wanted to see how big he is. Every good wrestler does so before starting the fight. The ghost appeared. Vijay Singh told the ghost that he had a great desire to meet him. He added that he was just a plain lying ghost. The ghost was taken aback at his insulting words. People generally started back in horror when they met him. The ghost concluded that Vijay Singh was an unfeeling creature. He was ignorant of the reason why Vijay Singh desired to see him. Vijay Singh called him a stupid ghost. He could not even read other men's thoughts. Vijay Singh told the ghost that he wanted to fight with a ghost. This made the ghost speechless. He could never think of a man who could challenge him to fight. The ghost sized him up. He said, "Vijay Singh, you don't appear all that strong to me." Vijay Singh told the ghost that he would show him his strength. Wishing to have a psychological victory on the ghost, he said that appearances are often deceptive. So now, exercises. What was Vijay Singh's weakness? Which awkward situation did it push him to? Vijay Singh was a wrestler. He was proud of his physical strength. His chief weakness was that he was boastful. He wanted to meet a ghost and teach him a lesson. His weakness pushed him into a difficult situation. He was told to go to the haunted desert to meet the ghost. He would not say no to the suggestion. Was the old woman's gift to Vijay Singh eccentric? Why? The old woman was known to be eccentric or whimsical. She put a small packet into Vijay Singh's hand. It contained a lump of salt and an egg. It was not an eccentric act. Both the gift proved very useful in his fight against the ghost. Why did Vijay Singh ask the ghost disguised as Natwar to come closer? Vijay Singh asked the ghost in the guise of Natwar to come closer. Like all good wrestlers, he wanted to size up his enemy ghost. What made the ghost speechless? Why? Vijay Singh tried to sound brave. He looked at Natwar's face. He declared that Network was a plain lying ghost. The ghost felt insulted, shocked, and speechless. Why did Vijay Singh say appearances can be deceptive? This is fifth question. The ghost first tried to demoralize Vijay Singh. He said that Vijay Singh was no match to him. At this, Vijay Singh also tried to frighten the ghost. He agreed to demonstrate his strength. Now, page number 51, exercise. First question. How did Vijay Singh use the egg? How did he use the lump of salt? Vijay Singh challenged the ghost to squeeze the piece of rock. The ghost tried his best but could not crush the piece of rock. Vijay Singh took advantage of the darkness. He took out an egg from his pocket. Taking the rock as well as the egg, he pressed the egg and claimed victory. Next time, he picked up another piece of rock and gave it to the ghost to crush it. The ghost again tried his best to crush the stone, but in vain. Meanwhile, Vijay Singh took out the lump of salt from his pocket and crushed it easily. This time too, he proved himself victorious. Thus, by using the egg and the lump of salt, he successfully outwitted the ghost. The second question is, why did Vijay Singh conclude that the ghost would not be worthy opponent to him? Was he fair in his judgment? Vijay Singh claimed victory over the ghost dishonestly. Victory spelling is Victory. Spelling mistake is there. He gave the ghost a piece of rock on both the occasions. The ghost failed to crush them, while Vijay Singh made use of the salt and the egg successfully. Thus, he proved the ghost a weakling in an unfair manner. Why did Vijay Singh ask the ghost to accompany him to town next day? Vijay Singh wanted to take the ghost to his town to impress his people. He wanted to present the ghost there as his prisoner. Fourth question is, what made the ghost believe Vijay Singh was dead? Vijay Singh saw through the ghost plan. He got out of the bed and put a round pillow in his place. The ghost struck the bolster hard with his mace or heavy stick. Since he didn't hear any groan, he took into his head that Vijay Singh was dead. Vijay Singh complained of insects in the cave. What was he referring to and why? Vijay Singh complained of insects in the cave. He was in fact referring to the ghost. He compared the ghost to a hateful weakling like an insect. The sixth question is, was it really a ghost who Vijay Singh befooled? Who do you think it was? The story of the trial of strength between a ghost and Vijay Singh cannot be true or believable. Nobody can see a ghost in human form. It does not live in a house or a cave. It does not collect wealth. It does not panic or run away in fear. The ghost in the story was only a dacoit who used to rob the rich and kill them. So story spelling Story. Now short answer type question, extra questions. All these are extra questions. So first question is, who was Vijay Singh? What did he look like? Vijay Singh was a famous wrestler. He was unbeatable. He had big shoulder and strong arms. He was so tall that he looked like a giant. This Pahalwan had but one shortcoming. What was that? Vijay Singh's one shortcoming was his habit of boasting. He wished to fight with a ghost and teach him a lesson. Third question, how did Vijay Singh feel when he was told to go to the haunted desert? Vijay Singh was frightened when he was asked to go to the haunted desert. His heart missed a beat or two at the thought of fighting with a ghost. Fourth question is, who really helped Vijay Singh in defeating the ghost? How? An old woman really helped Vijay Singh against the ghost. She gave him a packet containing a piece of salt and an egg. These two things helped him befool the ghost. Fifth question is, quote words that Vijay Singh uses to insult and demoralize the ghost. A plain, lying ghost, stupid ghost, worthless ghost, rascal of a ghost. All these are the words. Now, a long answer type question. First one, in what respect was a wrestling match strange? who were the true two rivals, who was a winner. The wrestling match was strange because it was a fight between a man and a ghost. The wrestler Vijay Singh had one weakness. He was boastful of his strength. This pushed onto an awkward situation. He accepted the challenge to fight a ghost in a haunted desert. The two gifts given by an old woman proved very useful. One was an egg and other a lump of salt. It was in fact a trial of wit and wisdom. Finally, Vijay Singh won the match and returned home with lots of gold. Give a character sketch of Vijay Singh. How did he outwit the ghost? Vijay Singh was a famous wrestler. He was boastful of his physical strength. He declared that he was unbeatable. His tall claim pushed him into trouble. He was challenged to fight a ghost. He went through the haunted desert. He carried a small packet containing an egg and a piece of salt. He used them wisely to befool and frighten the ghost. He crushed easily the lump of salt and cracked the egg. As it was dark, the ghost couldn't understand Vijay's trick and accepted his defeat. Thus, Vijay won the match by cheating and his superior wit. Now, the third question is, how did the old women's little gifts help Vijay Singh in vanquishing the ghost? Vijay Singh was a born and unbeatable wrestler, but his one great weakness was his boastfulness. Once he was called upon to prove his power and fearlessness. He went through a haunted desert to fight the ghost. An old woman's gift of an egg and a piece of salt helped him befool and outwit the ghost. He squeezed the egg as well as the salt to prove his prowess powers, not prowess powers. In the ghost cottage, too, he acted wisely and saved his life. Fourth question is, how did Vijay Singh outwit the ghost with his wit and wisdom? Vijay Singh made good use of the old woman's gift, an egg and a lump of salt. He challenged the ghost to squeeze a piece of rock. The ghost failed to do that. Vijay Singh took out the egg from his pocket and squeezed it easily. The ghost was nonplussed and he accepted defeat. Vijay Singh then threw another challenge. He gave another piece of rock to the ghost to crush. The ghost failed to crush the rock. Vijay Singh took out the piece of salt from the packet and crushed it easily. The ghost felt demoralized and again accepted his defeat. Now, fifth question is, how did the ghost make a plan to trick Vijay Singh finally? The ghost invited Vijay Singh to his cave. He vowed silently to kill the wrestler. He offered Vijay Singh a comfortable bed to sleep on. Vijay Singh saw through the ghost trick. He lay awake and at midnight he slipped off his bed. He put a bolster in his place on the bed. Early next morning, the ghost hit the bolster with his club. He took his enemy for dead, but Vijay Singh faced the ghost, who panicked. He fled from the cave, leaving behind all his wealth for Vijay Singh. That's it. Thank you, dear.